Sound? No. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Jonas Stepšys from Vytautas Magnus University, and today I will show you how bilingual children and non-native adults learning Lithuanian as a second language acquire morphosynthetic agreement features. And first of all, I'd like to start by saying that Lithuanian language is characterized by a complex morphological system and rich inflectional patterns, right? So nouns in Lithuanian, actually adjectives in Lithuanian must agree with nouns in gender, number, and case. And gender in Lithuanian language is quite special because when we are talking about humans or animal, the grammatical gender is biological sex. But in the case of objects and some abstract things, the gender is grammatical. So as you can see in these two examples, we have the same adjective, it's nice, right? But because of noun weather, oras, it's masculine, so the adjective must be in masculine form. If the noun is in feminine, diena, day, then the adjective must be in feminine as well. Uh, so Lithuanian adjectives are divided into four masculine and three feminine declension types. Nouns themselves fall into 12 different declension types. Some of these are iconic to noun declension patterns, while others are not, which adds additional complexity in this wool morphosynthetic agreement features. Studies show that morphosynthetic in Lithuanian, such as agreement, government, or adjacency, poses challenges for bilingual children, while typically developing children acquire these morphosynthetic features by age 4. Others may struggle for a longer period. So bilingual children or children with a typical language development. Foreign learners of Lithuanian also face similar challenges to bilingual children. Studies have shown that this difficulty arise in different contexts and tasks, like in written, experimental task, or spontaneous speech. This suggests that the challenge isn't just tied to the context or task type, but reflects a deeper difficulty with integrating agreement rules into active language use. So the goal of this study was to compare how bilingual children and non-native adults learning Lithuanian as a second language acquire morphosynthetic agreement in Lithuanian, specifically how they manage adjective noun agreement in terms of gender, number, and declension types. The structure of the experimental task was based on two major frameworks, the usage-based model by Tomasello and the theory of natural morphology by Dressler and his team, because these two theories reflects how Lithuanian is typically acquired, and they emphasize frequency, input, and cognitive simplicity in language learning and acquiring, actually. So the task included 36 sentences reflecting various declension types of different adjectival words, so 26 adjectives, 6 pronominal adjectives, and 4 participles. The low number of pronominal adjectives and participles is because in monolingual children's speech and monolingual adult spontaneous speech, the usage of these forms are quite rare. And The adjectival words were balanced according to the frequency and variety of grammatical categories such as number, gender, and also different cases. All adjectival words and nouns were selected from child speech and child-directed speech to represent the frequency of some of forms used in this task. And the sentences were designed to reflect the natural usage of Lithuanian language. Um, each item included one correct answer and three types of error. So the first one is declension type error. It means that adjectival word is used in incorrect declension type, but the number, case, and gender is correct. The second error is gender error, so incorrect adjectival word gender in the target declension type, and a number error, so incorrect adjectival word number in the target declension types. So these options were randomized to prevent pattern-based guessing. And this design allows us to trace which adjective noun agreement features pose the most challenges and why. So here's an example of the task. The target adjectives is A, žalios, and you can see that it's paired with incorrect alternatives such as žalio or žalių, so to test participant sensitivity to those agreement features. So participants completed the test individually online. They also filled social linguistic questionnaire for children. The parents filled these questionnaires. So this additional data helped us analyze background factors such as a second language or third language for children, and for example, mother tongue or Lithuanian proficiency level for adults. So as you can see, 35 children and 25 adults completed this task. And the sample is uneven across age groups, so age will not be considered when analyzing the results. And also the sample is uneven based on second languages for children and native languages for non-native adults. So social linguistic results will be analyzed with partial consideration of language groups, so analytic languages and synthetic languages. So for children, analytic languages was English, French, Norwegian, Danish. Synthetic languages was Russian, German, Arabic, Greek, Portuguese, Finnish, Swedish, Hungarian. And for adults, analytic languages was as well English, French, Hindi, Japanese, and synthetic languages was Ukrainian, Portuguese, Latvian, Russian, German, Polish, Kazakh, Belarusian, and Finnish. So several key findings emerge. First, participants from analytic language groups made frequent errors in gender agreement. We think because in analytic languages, gender is often absent. In synthetic language group, the most common difficulties were related to inflections of different declension types, so it's for adults, and the number agreement for children. And among non-native adults who are learning Lithuanian as a second language, beginners made more than twice agreement errors compared to advanced learners. It's because Lithuanian non-native adults who are learning Lithuanian as a second language, they are not learning agreement features till the level B1. So it's not surprising that beginners made more errors in morphosynthetic agreement. Now let's look at overall agreement errors patterns. So bilingual children struggle with gender agreement in adjectival words. It's often influenced by declension type iconicity. I will show you later. Non-native adults made most errors in declension type agreement. It reflects the inflection diversity of Lithuanian, and interestingly, number agreement caused the fewest errors for both groups. It suggests that maybe number may be the easiest morphosynthetic feature to acquire and learn. Also, we found that gender of the noun had no significant effect of the rate of agreement errors. So the learners struggled equally with both masculine or feminine forms. In the contrast, number did make a difference. So both the children and adults made significantly more errors when the noun was a plural compared to singular. And this maybe indicates that plural forms are more cognitively or morphologically challenging. And we know from monolingual children that a grammatical category of number is quite easy to acquire, and singular form is actually more simple for them than plural form. So there will be three examples of errors, and the first one, how inflectional diversity leads to mistakes. So as you can see, the adjective kairoje, so left locative, is incorrectly inflected as kairoje. So the children or adults are mimicking the noun's form rankoje. Yeah, so this suggests that learners maybe overgeneralize from noun inflections. Another pattern is regularization. So learners replace unproductive paradigms, declension types, to more productive ones. So, for example, saldus is mistakenly changed saldo, aligning with more common SO patterns. And the final example, learners preferred unmarked forms, so singular is less marked than plural. And in this example, Medinas, plural, is replaced by Medina, wooden, singular form, even though the noun pilis, castles, is in uh, plural form. So to summarize, both bilingual children and non-native adults face challenges in Lithuanian morphosynthetic agreement. So largely due to the language inflectional richness, errors stem from overgeneralization, declension type simplification, and a preference for unmarked forms. And also, learners with analytic first languages are especially vulnerable to these morphosynthetic agreement challenges. And for future research, we hope to analyze more children or adults whose first language is analytic languages. So thank you very much, and I hope we could have a quick discussion.
Thank you. And now we will have time for several questions.
Thank you very much. I think I asked you this once already.
Yes.
But I'm very curious about you mentioned you have one person with Latvian.
Yeah, adult.
But very much adult. Well, it doesn't matter. I would very much like to see, or well, maybe you can in future look at these data in particularly, because it is the closest language to Lithuanian. Yes, so now contemporary, the closest Baltic language, and gender assignment principles are quite similar.
Yes.
It is one thing because you get the mechanism. Although Latvian has one declension for adjective, and that's like Lithuanian. So, and then another thing, I started thinking, well, you are talking about synthetic and analytic languages, which is fine. But synthetic languages are quite different because if you have a fusional language like Russian or Polish or Ukrainian, so it is in like in Lithuanian. So you see, in these languages, it is difficult when you have plural and case marking.
Yes.
It's the same. It's one. You cannot. It's one morpheme with two grammatical meanings. So it's simultaneously plural and case. And if you take an agglutinating language like Turkish or Hungarian, or even Estonian and Finnish, it's a different thing. Because it's clear one marker is responsible for plural, and the other one is the case marker.
Yes.
And so maybe this also plays some role.
Yeah.
And Arabic is something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because well, it is synthetic, but it's something different. The formation.
Yes.
So maybe this plays also.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Just throwing questions into the air.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that. Yes. So we will consider in future research, definitely. Yes.
And I think that maybe sometimes it's not too easy to divide all languages between synthetic and analytic. I started to think about Estonian, and I think it's not easy to conclude that Estonian is purely synthetic. Or it depends on
In Lithuanian as well, as well.
Well,
we have some synthetic.
Yeah, but the prevailing tendency.
Yeah.
Some more? Yeah.
The question was the design of the test.
Yeah.
So you have 3 different types of errors, but for example, for declination, you have to choose which declination the error falls into, right?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Have 3 types of errors.
Yeah.
But if you have one type of error, you have 3 different ways to express it itself.
Yeah.
How do you consider that?
So the main point of this design was like to see if because like nouns has 12 different declension types, right? And adjectives has only like 7 declension types in feminine and masculine compared, So the main reason we done this design was to see if noun declensions has some impact of how the children choose the ending of adjectival words when we are talking about that agreement features in Lithuanian. Yeah. So
I was also wondering, you mentioned Japanese, and so I got to thinking that Japanese, for example, does not have grammatical plural at all. So you mentioned that singular and plural was easier for most people. I'm wondering, is it because the other languages also have the categories for singular and plural, or is it just an easier category in Lithuanian, since I don't know much about Lithuanian?
I would say it's easier category. It's like singular form, as it's more frequent one.
So you see it more often in your input?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the next presentation is by Reili Arbus, Piret Peard, Andra Kütt-Leedis, Evelyn Neudorf ja Tiina Rüütma.
Ja Anne Uusen.
Sorry.
One more. I am here anyway.
Sorry, but it is not.
Yeah, my name is.
I'm sorry. So it's Estonian language proficiency of Ukrainian and Russian-speaking third grade students.
I am so that I don't need to prove it.
All right, I will start and then I will pass off the clicker. After the war started in Ukraine, there was a very, very big amount of refugees that Estonia received. And Estonia was before not a refugee destination country. So now we have this situation where we have a lot of students who in our school system and in our daycare centers that do not speak Estonian. This second language acquisition among students who have this migration background has been a significant area of research in other parts of the world, but not here in Estonia before. So now we are trying to research it also here because it has suddenly become very significant for us. Some previous research has indicated that refugees typically acquire the second language slower than other immigration groups, and that has been suggested to be due to that sometimes there are gaps in their education or there are some trauma from the war. Yes. So our study aimed to assess the level of Estonian language proficiency among Ukrainian refugee students and then non-refugee students at the beginning of third grade. And we wanted to also see the extent to which this proficiency is influenced by factors in the student's home language environment, including also the timing and the nature of their exposure to Estonian. And for that, we found third grade students. We had 34 Ukrainian refugees, and they came from various schools in Tallinn. And we had 23 children with Russian mother tongue who were not refugees. They had most of them grown up here in Estonia since birth. And what we did is we had a picture description test. We had this picture that was specifically developed for testing the children's ability to describe, yes. And we also had a parental questionnaire. We wanted to find out some data on their socioeconomic factors for the Ukrainians. We wanted to know when they came, when did the children, also the locals, start to have contact with Estonian, what kind of daycares did they go to? Was it Estonian daycare or then Russian language daycares? They have those also previously in Estonia. And we wanted to know how much contact they have with Estonian. Yes. So for the qualitative analysis, we so far measured the vocabulary, so the richness and division into divided it into parts of speech, and how they use constructions. And now a little bit about the children. We found our students from 6 different schools in Tallinn, and they came from 11 different classes. And the Ukrainian children, they divided into 2 groups. So in some schools, when a lot of the Ukrainians came, they created special classes with only Ukrainian students that came, the war refugees. And the other group was then the instruction of language is in Estonian, but the class has many different language backgrounds, mostly Estonian, but also some children from other backgrounds. But the Russian-speaking children in our data or in our study they went to Estonian schools, and for those who do not know, then Estonia has the Suskin system where there are Estonian medium schools and then Russian medium schools, and currently there is a transition from the Russian medium education to only Estonian medium education. And this is why also we had to pick third grade to avoid the challenges coming from that. But yes, so the Russian-speaking children all went to the Estonian medium schools. And a little bit about the children's linguistic background that we found out. So all of the Ukrainians, they relocated to Estonia in 2022, and all of them were in our study were within the first 6 months. So between February and September of 2022 is when they came here. So the home language environment of Ukrainian children is that 6 mothers and 7 fathers spoke only Ukrainian to their child, 5 mothers and 5 fathers only Russian, and then 10 mothers and 8 fathers speak Ukrainian and Russian to their child. So we can conclude that most homes actually have both of the languages, Ukrainian and Russians, present, and 5 homes were only Ukrainian and 5 homes only Russian, according to what the parents reported to us. So when we look at the children who were born or who were the Russian language group, they have lived here since birth, except for 2 of them, but they also came within, I believe, when they were 2 or 3, they relocated to Estonia. And about half of these students, they attended this only Estonian medium kindergarten. Now, when we look at where the children come in contact with Estonian, then it is mostly school. And now it was very interesting to notice in the data that I have here that refugee children say 20 hours and locals 25 hours, but there was something off in that data because sometimes in the same class, the mother had reported that their child had 5 hours of contact with Estonian, while another parent from the same class had said that they have 30 hours of contact. So we have to look into that. Where could that problem come from? What we also can see from here is that their children do have contact with friends, true friends, that they have some Estonian speaking friends, and they do read books and watch TV in Estonian. And it seems like the local children or the Russian group had more extracurricular activities because they had contact, or parents said about 3 hours in Estonian. However, when I looked more closely in the data, it became that actually that there's still a lot of children who do not have any extracurricular activities in Estonian, but rather some children just have a lot of it and others don't have at all. And there was 1 Russian child and 1 refugee child, one local and 9 refugee children who had no contact outside of school with Estonian. Yes. So when general about the vocabulary, we can see that although Ukrainian children, their text might be longer, but Russian-speaking students, their vocabulary they use is more expressive and diverse. So, but what is interesting when we look at different schools, and we can say here the same type of schools, but in same type of schools, the results are different. So we discuss about that a little bit later in discussion. Yes, yeah. And here, school 1 is more than 10 Russian-speaking pupils in the class. So maybe is there some kind of numbers of Russian-speaking or Ukrainian-speaking children that affects, but we discuss it a little bit later.
But when we analyze a little bit more detailed and distribution of part of speech, we can see that the results is quite or even very similar. The biggest difference is use of adverbs, but adverbs is also quite diverse and wide part of speech, and a little bit are different also in adjectives. So Ukrainian student use more adjectives and also more numbers, but this difference is quite small.
And the analysis of constructions can be divided into two parts. First, on the sentence level, and the second on the phrase level. And as you can see, the picture is quite similar in case of two groups. And you can see also that Russian-speaking children used a little bit more constructions in general than Ukrainian-speaking children. And the same similarity is also visible here. On the phrase level constructions, there are some differences still more visible than on the sentence level. And you can see that Russian-speaking children use more different constructions. There is one type of construction which is missing in Ukrainian children's data. And as a conclusion, we could say that this qualitative analysis of vocabulary and constructions demonstrated that there is a small difference between Ukrainian children and Russian-speaking children. It is approximately 10% concerning the vocabulary, and the Russian-speaking children had a bigger variety of vocabulary. There are quite big differences between schools in both groups and also inside these school types. We call school type, we name it like it's a school where Russian children or Ukrainian children are separately. So, or they are not separately. And there was a little small difference in division into part of speech, and maybe it's 10% concerns adverbs. It could be, but on the level of constructions, mostly the same types of constructions were used by both groups, but in case of Russian-speaking children, they used a little bit bigger variety of constructions, and they used the same constructions more frequently. So, as for the discussion, we can say that the Estonian language skills in the beginning of third grade are different between two groups, and Russian-speaking children have a little bit better skills, but we haven't used any statistical tests yet. We will do it at some point, and then I can see if this difference is significant or not. But for us, this small difference was surprisingly small. So we have to consider that Russian-speaking children have at least 5 years advantage, and half of them actually have been in Estonian medium kindergarten. And it could be that this has to be some influence, but actually this is not having very good or very strong impact. So results were different even in similar type of schools, and it it seems to us that the general organization of teaching refugee children and other children doesn't have a clear impact to Estonian language skills. That is, the strategy to teach Ukrainian refugee children in a separate class doesn't would be okay or not, it doesn't matter. So, but we saw differences inside one school type. For example, in the previous slide where the data about vocabulary was presented, we saw the difference between two schools, and these two schools are comparable in the terms of teaching, organization of teaching, and they are both so-called elite schools or higher schools, better schools in Tallinn. And the number of students we analyzed was similar, but still the difference was quite big. So it can be that there are different teachers with using different methodology, and the reason might be that the difference is not between schools, but between teachers. We don't know yet. And what we saw is that children having more contacts with Estonian outside the school have, in most cases, there was one exception, they have better results, and in both group, in Russian speaking and in Ukrainian refugee children group. And what was really interesting for us was that in Ukrainian group, multilingual home environment, that is the situation when the child had two languages at home, Ukrainian and Russian, seems also have a positive impact to Estonian language skills. But this is very initial idea that needs to be proved. Thank you.
For discussion, questions and discussion. So, yeah, please.
Just because you said that the sort of the refugee classes do not pay off, but that it's more teacher style. Maybe did you also look at class size? Because better schools tend to have smaller classes, whereas bigger sort of, you know, public schools have more, public school in the sense of American English, have, you know, bigger classes. So does that?
It could be, because in both these classes, they had, as I remember, 14 children. 13, 14 children, quite small.
Good ratio.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be the reason, yes.
Anything else? And then I have a question. Sorry, question.
Do you have information whether the teachers used CLIL methodology? Or it's outside of school?
Yes, Anne can answer.
Yeah, yes, we have, but we have not analyzed it yet because it is very new research.
No. And then I have a question. So it was in Tallinn, yes?
Yes.
So I wonder what regional difference will tell us or will not tell us, because as we know, there are different linguistic environments in Estonia. So if you take Narva, it will be, or well, let's not take extreme examples, but let's say Jõhvi. And you take Saaremaa, for example. There are Ukrainians in Saaremaa. Yeah. So what will you get? Just well, maybe you can do it in future.
Yes.
Because I think that in Estonia, this regional aspect is quite significant.
Definitely.
Yeah, so related to socioeconomic index in the
it's ethno-linguistic composition, and yeah. As you know, after the occupation and annexation of the Baltic states, there was a certain policies that encouraged, well, they wanted to dilute the local population. So basically what they've always done. And so the result was that during the Soviet time, everybody had to learn Russian, but Russian speakers did not have necessarily to learn the local languages. And the places, there are areas where Russian speakers are concentrated because there were some factories and enterprises, so where they worked. And so this is quite, well, there are 4 language environments in Estonia. So, and so if you go to Narva, for example, it's the border city. So you have the almost, so, well, of course there are Estonian schools and Estonian speakers, but it is mostly Russian dominant urban environment. There is Estonian dominant urban environment like Tartu, for example. And there is bilingual urban environment like Tallinn. And there is rural Estonian dominant environment because there's no Russian rural environment. And so depending on that, what you get, what kind of input. So yeah.
And maybe it depends also about all attitude, how this class or environment caters the refugees. Because now we saw very often that even there was 2 or 3 refugees in class. They don't communicate so much between Estonians and so on. So it's a little bit
the role of the teacher.
Because
the teacher can.
Of course.
Exactly.
And
may I ask the same question about the language environments in a more explicit form? Was there any major difference concerning the schools situated in Lasnamäe when compared to other schools in Tallinn?
I think that we haven't actually analyzed this.
Well, we were talking about bilingual urban environment. So Lasnamäe is one thing, and let's say Pirita, well, I don't know what. I don't know.
We have schools from different parts of Tallinn. But the most big difference was in the school where it is very special school in our terms, English college.
We got just across the street here. It's considered.
But I made very demanding.
Schools in Tallinn and most prestigious
high-level school.
Elite.
We call so, but it's not official. So we have all school very similar and very.
But I can say that it was actually quite hard to find the schools who are volunteered to take part of this research. And when we found the schools, then actually to find the parents who agreed that their children will be in the making those tests and they have to fill the questionnaire. So I think that half of them actually dropped out. No, we don't want to do it.
Please.
Thanks for a very interesting study and presentation indeed. So you said there is a lot of data you are still about to analyze that you have gathered. So what kind of results do you expect or aim to get out of that data? And do you expect to find the reason why a certain group of young pupils have richer or stronger vocabulary and language than the other? Or do you expect that this data will give you it?
Yes, of course. We have a data, how to say, we visited lessons and we are sitting with children in the classroom and made notes. And this data is not analyzed yet. We have to do it. And then we can answer also on questions concerning the methodology or other things.
And we also have a second round. We are going to go and do the same description task with the students in about 1 year after the first time. And then we will compare and we want to see their progress and we want to compare that because we do realize right now the non-refugees, they had been here longer and we want to see what happens in a year. Will one group progress faster than the other one?
And also the environment is very different.
There is one question in Zoom.
Maybe it's the last one. Aida Hajaturian asks, before starting your research, did you examine existing studies on multilingual children's foreign language acquisition and cognitive flexibility, or did you have a specific hypothesis you were testing?
No, not particularly concerning the cognitive factors. Not yet. We had just this idea of Stolk and Browder when they said that the refugee children acquire the second language in much slower path than other immigrant children. Nothing more.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kuidas peab sellega me liigume siis?
Now we will turn again to code switching. And
siin ei ole.
Okei,
ei ole.
Sinna ka siis.
Nii. So we are grateful to Antti and Stefan for paving the way for us, because in a sense, we will be talking about similar things, although we have a different material and we are not talking about children. So towards the typology of mixed copies. So I've been pondering on mixed copies, and if you know my work, so I go periodically, I come back to that. So this is our outline. So we will talk about our goals, then we will outline the code copying framework and type of copies, and we'll try to look into the typology of mixed copies, because they are not the same. So, and then we will turn to our particular data. It's Estonian, English, bilingual speech, and we're trying to locate and typologize, classify mixed copies there. So what is a mixed copy? So it is interesting because it's, you see, this type of copies, it confirms that morphosyntax and lexicon are not cognitively separated. So the main problem with many code switching theories is that they do not account for morphosyntax or, things on the border. So something like, if you have in English hardworking, compound hardworking, and in Estonian you get hard töötav. Or letter from X, well, something. So if you have this construction and you introduce the English preposition, so the Estonian noun will not have case markers like kiri from Rimmel, something like this. So it is often ignored or just described like in between somewhere. So it's very difficult to deal with it because there are different terms in different frameworks, or so you don't know whether they are talking about different things or similar things or the same thing. So there are different terms. So Haugen, this is classical. I think everybody knows lone blends, but there are other theories. Well, we have to look into this more, but partial fusion, like Hakimov and Riesler and others. So there is code copying framework developed by Lars Johansson, and it is less known than other frameworks because it was in the beginning, it was all in the Turkic language research context. So this thing is like hard töötav, is called mixed copy. So we are trying to outline mixed copy types based on our on case studies known to us and on the literature. So we looked up everything that what Johansson writes about mixed copying, and then particular to address Estonian English bilingual speech. So the basic, very basic foundations of coping framework. There is no transfer, carry over, take over, because what we do cognitively, we copy something. So the mechanism of language context is copying. It's not the exclusive mechanism, but many things are copies. So you can copy anything from the model code. So you have a model and you copy, and this copy lives its own line in the base code. So there are, of course, you want now nice old-fashioned structural approach. So the direction, so is it imposition from first language to the second, or adoption from the second to the first? Well, for the sake of simplicity here, it's a gross simplification, but we assume that Estonian is the first language and English is the second. So copying from, we are interested in copying from L1 to L2. So any unit has four kinds of properties: material, semantic, combinational, and frequential. If you copy everything, or more or less everything, you get a global copy. So in other frameworks, it's either code switching or borrowing or meta replication. And you can copy only some properties. And it's called selective copy with subtypes. Sometimes it's loan translation, semantic extension, pattern replication. So there are many, many names. And then we get to the mixed copies. So the first introduction of the code copying framework and mixed copies in particular was done in German, because Lars Johansson was a professor of Turkic languages in Germany. So he wrote mostly in German in the beginning. So if you read German, you can read this. So aus rein globalen und selektiven Codekopien existieren Mischkopien, kombinatorische Kopien, die mindestens je eine Globalkopie enthalten und andere physikalische Mischkopien. Here he makes this reference to lone blends in Haugen's terms. So, and there are examples. Uzbek Yarim Automat. So they have automat, I don't know, some kind of automat. So it is modeled on Russian Polu Automat, but Yarim is half in Uzbek. So, and then another quotation, the copy is a global block of structural, that is material, semantic, combinational, frequential properties. Selective copying means that the original is one selected structural, material, semantic, combinational, frequential property of such a block. Mixed copies combine the two processes. So he's saying that is something in between selective and global copying. So basically, in other terms, you have model code, in our case, English. So elements, the combinational rules, overall semantics, so overall meaning, because very often they have, as you will see, some kind of idiomatic meaning. And the copy combines the principle from the model code, some elements from the model code, but some from the base code. So this is how you get this hard working and hard töötav. So possible types. So I'm not saying that we have, this is the final classification, because there are many interesting things that look on the surface like mixed copies, but they are not mixed copies. So we're not going to talk about them here. So compound, what we saw in Antjes and Stefan's presentation. So all kind of compounds. So noun plus noun, adjective plus noun, highlight a palette. So it's, well, I don't know, highlighted palette. I don't know what it is, but anyway, chicken wrap. Kana is chicken, is kana wrap. Or sometimes, so this occurs mostly in written material, so abbreviation plus noun. So BBCC cream. So it is BCC creme, something like this. Well, I don't know. I will ask again. I will ask you because you are experts in this. Frame and slot construction. So something was very basic. So something like go to X. I want B. Something like when you have a fixed part and one part is like, it is determined whether it is a noun, an adjective, something like that. So X style, something. New York style, Tallinn style, whatever you want. I love New York stiilis. X relationship. So instead of X, there can be anything. Love-hate relationship, love-hate suhe. So this is called by Johansson frame changing construction. So it is interesting because it's not just that you combine elements from the basic and model code, but what you copy from the model code drags along, so to say, morphosyntactic properties. For example, word order, or it can be, well, there are other examples from other languages where it's like case marking is different, well, argument structure. So I don't know, we have one such construction like adjective superlative noun plus ever. The best song ever, something like this. So in Estonian, you don't have it. There is, of course, you can say, or you can express this, but it will be different. The word order will be different. So here you have üks hullumeelsemaid nädalaid ever, one of the craziest weeks ever. So, and well, we don't have it on slides, but this construction has been used in advertising quite a lot in Estonia. So then this is what mentioned. So you have a frame changing. Again, you have an English preposition. Well, in English, you don't have case marking, you don't have cases. So in this case, you don't have Estonian case marking either. So in Estonian, it should be rimmelilt ablative case. And so there are analytic verbs and idioms. So of course, both English and Estonian have analytic verbs, but I think we have to look into it because they are not, these classes are not the same, they're not identical. But analytic verb might have some degree of idiomaticity. So someone like go away is less idiomatic, but something like, well, so you can imagine that some can be more idiomatic. So I checked over, tšekkisin üle. So üle is like over. So you can argue, well, kontrollisin üle in Estonian, well, it's like, in this case, they are overlapping two languages. Is it a copy? So Johansson have some considerations about that, but he doesn't give a straight answer. Or idioms. So something like this. So one part, so the idiom is from English, and so some part is translated, a selective copy. And so mida is what?
So where our examples and data is coming from, we have 3 sets of data from blogs, vlogs, and podcasts. And this data is collected at different times, and the podcasts set of data is the newest one. And if we previously looked at mostly on women's language use, then in the podcasts data set, we are focusing more on men because we are also interested in their language use. And you can also see that no, you can't see it here, but I'm going to tell you that in the podcast dataset, the informants are slightly older than in the first two groups. So in the blogs and vlogs, we have females who are about 16 to maximum 25 years old. And in the podcasts group, everyone are at least 30 years old, but it's rather 35 plus years old. So there's a bit of difference in that. But if we compare these different sets of data, what we can see that how these different types of copies are present, in our data, you see that global copies heavily prevail, and there are just a pinch of selective copies and mixed copies. So the proportions are quite the same. So the data set or the medium, is it a podcast or a blog? It doesn't play much role. But if we look at how much mixed copies is there per 1,000 words, we can see that in vlogs, it's the highest. So this is the group where we have young women who sit in front of a camera and they talk and chat with their audience. So, it's quite free. Then there is these blogs where we still have these young women, but they have to write it down. So, and this data set blogs is, this data is from 2012 to 2018, when all these new mediums, we didn't have podcasts at that time when we collected blogs. So they probably, when they were writing, I imagine that they were a bit more conservative. And in the podcasts group, we can see that this has the least share of MCs or overall different types of copies. This is, we have the least different types of copies in the podcast set. So, and these are mostly male, and sitting and having chat, with someone else. Maybe some of them is like an interviewer and the other is interviewee. And it's like a more formal setting. So this might also be one of the explanations why we see that podcasts have the least mixed copies. But now we're going to show you the different examples of these different types of mixed copies. So the compound group heavily prevails, like 90%. So this shows that this is a very easy way to make these new kind of compounds. And it doesn't even matter, is the first part in English, is the second part in English. This is a very frequent group. Yli happy, this Yli Estonian part, very and happy is from English. Ilu Häkid, as you can see, this hacks also is written in Estonian. It's becoming quite common. Ilu Häkid, beauty hacks, putting together. And I even found one verb, fake päevitä, fake tan. It is very, compact in English. And fake tan, I think it's used only as a noun. I don't know if anyone would say in English, I am going fake tanning, maybe. But in Estonian, võiks päevitama doesn't sound like something you would do. But fake päevitä, oh yeah, it's of course. So this is an interesting example. So then we had this second type where we have abbreviations, and these are mainly used in written texts because in oral speech, it is much easier to say the actual word than to use abbreviation. So we have this like outfit of the day, OOTD. You see that it's quite hard to spell it in oral speech. So these are like certain types and already, very frequent in this, in this lingua. And then this heat training, this was from a blog, from a sports blog. A girl was sharing her journey. She wanted to become a personal trainer. So it's quite normal that heat training, to write it in the long version would be quite long. Then we have this frame and slot construction. This is also quite popular, and this is also very used in the vlogs. This nice to have toda, nice to have product, nice to have a code. It's very productive. You can replace the word toode with, basically everything you want to say. Then this how-to how-to series. Again, this how-to is a very certain frame used. Again, this could be replaced with different slots. And this go-to ilmestyskreem, maybe something like must-have toode. Again, this refers like this is my favorite, the first one I would use, the first one I would think of. Again, you can replace this word ilmestyskreem or foundation with almost every word. Then this frame changing type. Kõige lahedam sünnipäev ever, the coolest birthday ever. And in this type, we had all the examples were the one that contained the word ever. So maybe we have to discuss what to do here, what this exactly is, because in Estonian, you could just say kõige lahedam sünnipäev. This word kõige would mark this ever part. I think in oral speech, you could say kõige lahedam sünnipäev üldse.
But
you could use it.
Üldse is in general.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Oh, but it's not like ever.
It's not, yeah, it's not in the
It doesn't have this temporal meaning.
Yeah, so you would say just parim näomask. This would be it. But this ever keeps occurring, and it seems to me that it's becoming more and more popular. That these kind of constructions are used more and more. And in this type, we also have this one where they don't use the Estonian case markers. In our data set, we didn't have any examples of this, but I know that these examples do occur because I use it myself. Sometimes when I have to take notes like real quick, then you want to abbreviate the words. You want to write shorter. So what part do you leave out? The last part. But what part in Estonian contains the most important grammatical info? The end part. So you use the English preposition so you can shorten the rest of the word. And it doesn't appear in our data yet, but I think that the time will show that this will maybe be more present in the near future. Then the type 5, where we have analytic verbs. I don't want to freak you out, ära friikida. So, and I think that these kind of examples, teen errorit, make an error, these are also examples of language play because it sounds fun. And I've also heard, for example, speak up, räägi appi, this up, and these are like very popular and fun, and these appeared in the vlogs. So again, in the data set where the informants were very, very free and they had very colorful language use. So these vlogs is a good source for this fun and different kind of examples. And then the last type is idioms. So when we usually talk about selective copies, what is a selective copy? My cup of tea, minu teetes, it's a really good example to use to explain to people what a selective copy is. And what we see here, my cup of tea, minu teetes, this is now minu cup of tea. So, this my part is like translated, and this cup of tea is still remains in English. And it's just a really interesting example because, we have a lot of this minu teetäss and minu kohvitäss when people, my cup of coffee, if people don't drink tea. So it's also a great example. And then this good point, hea point. Well, this is a borderline case because the word point is already very common in Estonian and it can be used in different expressions. So this is maybe a borderline case, but this, good point. It's, it's an idiomatic phrase, and but just interesting to see. Okay. And now, but our conclusions. I wrote here that MCs slightly appear more in written text, but I actually would like to say that that's not quite true, because if we look at the columns here, we see that, yeah, if we add these two oral speech datasets, blogs and podcasts, then yeah, it seems like that in oral speech there are less mixed copies, more in written dataset. But actually, I think that here we have to look at the medium. Exactly, that in blogs people are more free, and in podcasts they are very, this official. So I think that it's not that the question is it the written or oral speech, but rather the question of age and the format and the channel that they are using to communicate with their audience. And if we look at these different types of MCs, we discovered in our data, we see that they are all present in our data, these larger types. And this type of compounds, the first type, this heavily prevails. 90% of MCs are from that category. And to our surprise, there are quite few analytic verbs, this rääkima appi, speaking up, these kind of things. And we did assume that there would be more of these, because this is quite common in Estonian and in English as well. But I also have a feeling that these kind of things might occur more often in the future, but we'll see. So thank you for listening, and we are really looking forward to your comments and ideas, because it's all quite new and we're just trying this out to make this kind of scale.
Coherent, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we can have some questions.
Okay, so I think we talked about some of these examples before. So you had this from rim and ilt would be basically double grammar, because the LT ending and from.
No, it's from rimmel. Yes.
Yeah. Your example is from rimmel, but if it would be from rim and ilt, it would be like double
marking, yeah.
Which we, I guess, don't usually see. I've seen some examples in spoken language, like pile of lehti. I've mentioned this example before. It was
so the pile of leaves, but pile of lehti, partitive plural.
Partitive lehti, yeah. So which is technically double grammar. So this was a case from somebody seeing a squirrel playing with a pile of leaves. So tal on seal pile of lehti. So sometimes you do see double grammar, but not very often, I would say, probably. I haven't analyzed it. But yeah, it seems to me that double grammar is quite rare.
We haven't any, I don't know. I haven't seen it much in English Estonian examples, but what I've seen, Russian, Estonian, and there is some attestation Russian Finnish. So like you have a Russian preposition, so basically the same, and then you have a Finnish or Estonian noun with case markers. So yeah, well, I don't know why don't we have it? But yeah, yes. Yes, but it's not analyzed, this case mark, because it's a double marking, because the semantics is both, but it's also semantics. The semantics is both in the case marker and in the preposition.
I've also seen an example, donuts ate. So donuts is already plural, but you very often encounter it in plural.
Yeah, but this is about frequency. Well, there is a paper on Russian-German, I believe, by Nikolai Hakimov. You would know. There's a paper that argues on what kind of plural marking, so Russian-speaking Germans, yeah, so what kind of plural marking there will be. And they're different. So if you come up with structural arguments, so it didn't work, the frequency showed. Now, well, they have frequent in German, in the German input, so would tend to have German plural marker. But this is a different, I think that, is this a mixed copy? Well, maybe, I don't know. If you have something like pile of lehti, maybe it will be a mixed copy. But again, you have a construction here. So this is a difficult case.
I was thinking about her case with frame copying.
Frame changing, you mean? Uh-huh.
It's, it's at the end of the sentence, right? And it's super stressed, like marking stress. So I'm thinking, like, does it happen in writing as well?
This first example is from a written text. It's from a blog, and it was like in 2012 or something. So it's.
I can show in my computer. I have some advertisement from a magazine, some beauty style magazine. So something like parim. Well, you name the product ever. So the best. I don't know. Name of the cosmetic product and ever. So it's not I see where your point is, that it is stressed, but it's also, you see what is going on. This is specific. So if you look at, it's an interesting question, we didn't have time to talk about it. What part of this mixed copy is a global copy? And you see that this is a specific, because speak is less specific than speak up. Yeah, and you see, so it is stressed, but not only in the sense of intonation, maybe, but in the semantic sense.
What about the fact that it's at the end, like it doesn't change, like it doesn't actually change the word order?
Well, you say kõige parem, well, kõikide aegade. So of old times, you can say kõikide aegade parim, whatever. Yeah, so of old, so ever will be like of old times. It is possible, but you don't say it in Estonian. Well, everybody laughed. So this is an indication that you don't say it in Estonian, although it's grammatically correct. Yeah.
Thank you. And we will continue tomorrow morning. Thank you. Ma hakkasin mõtlema, et me ei ole üldse kinni, saame aru, millal keegi kasutab. Hello.
dear audience. Let's start now our next session number 4, titled Corpus Linguistics. And the first presentation about frequency types in lexicography will be presented by František Kovařík.
Thank you. Is there a place I should stay for the camera or something? Or...
Oh, it's the laptop cameras.
A laptop camera, all right. Hopefully I can manage to be in the picture. All right. Oh, you're not. See. Okay, so as you all heard, my name is František Kovařík. I'm very pleased to present some of my research to you at this lovely conference. And something about me, I'm from Czech Republic, from Brno, from Masaryk University. And I'm also working for Lexical Computing, which is the company responsible for Sketch Engine. Me personally, I'm not working with Sketch Engine much, but I was part of the support team back in the day. So if you have any questions about that, we can discuss that after the presentation. What I'm working on are the Dictionary Express projects. Dictionary Express is kind of a methodology for creating dictionaries more rapidly using semi-automatic methods. So automatic methods, but then manually annotated data, which I'm going to discuss it in a while. And part of my research concerns the frequency word lists, which I'm going to talk about, and how the choice of a frequency type can influence the dictionary making process or not. But first, I'd like to make a riddle or a question for you. I heard this from a colleague lexicographer who makes a dictionary for their language, and he told me a rather bizarre story of them making of people of their language making a dictionary of 100,000 most frequent headwords, which took them 40 years. And he told me that if they want another 100,000 headwords, it could take them 40 more years, right? So my question, I already answered it now, is if the first 100,000 most frequent headwords take 40 years, how many years will the next 100,000 headwords take? And well, I really don't think it's going to be 40 years. It's going to be much more, right? Because the next 100,000 headwords are going to be much more difficult. So I'm going to show you why. If we are talking about the most frequent headwords, like 100,000, we are actually talking about a word list, a frequency word list of words. In this case, of like a word list of lemposses, so the pairs of lemma and POS, right? For the dictionary entries, we have a lot of other types of word lists. For example, this is a word form. List of verbs or of verb forms in English. So for example, here we have the word list. The most frequent verb form in English is of the word be. The second one is are, and so on and so forth. And if we want 100,000 headword word list, we have like the first 100,000 of them, right? This is very simple. Well, it starts to get a bit difficult after we've chosen, like, you know, the lempos or the lemma or the word. We can also choose the frequency type, which we are gonna sort this word list with, right? I'm talking about 4 frequency types because these are the only ones I know, but I'm sure there are many more. The most basic one is, of course, the absolute frequency, right? The absolute frequency of a word in a corpus is the exact count of the instances of a word there, right? Or the forms of a lemma and so on. But this is not enough. It's not very efficient because if you only count the instances, there is this phenomenon which is called word burstiness. And this means that, for example, I saw a lot of seagulls today, so I'm going to talk about seagulls. If I write a document about seagulls, I'm going to use the word seagulls all over again, many times in the document, right? Like 1,000 times. And then when I put this document into a corpus, this means that the absolute frequency gets very high because the word bursts in just one document, right? So we want to make sure this is, we work with this bias. One of the tools that we can use is the document frequency. So I just count the count of the number of documents this word occurs at least once. And it doesn't matter how many times, I just count the documents. I can also use the ARF, so average reduced frequency, which is a kind of it has a kind of a paradigm to count the frequency. I don't have time for that to explain, but it's kind of interesting. And also we have the average logarithmic distance frequency, which not only counts the instances, but it also counts the distance between the instances. So we make sure with ALDF, we make sure that the word is distributed throughout the whole corpus, right? So these are the 4 main frequencies I'm working with. And if I want to evaluate which frequency type I want to use in my dictionary, I not only have to have the frequency word lists based on these frequencies, but I also have to know how many words of these word lists are correct, Czech words, because I'm working with the Czech Dictionary Express project, and which ones are wrong, they have typos or they have bad lemmatization and so on. And well, this is kind of difficult, right? How do we do that? How do we get a 100,000 word list and say how many words there are correct and how many words there are incorrect? And this is why I use the Dictionary Express data for this. The Dictionary Express data for the vocabulary, for the choice of headwords that are put into the dictionary, works like this. We get the data from a corpus. In this example, the word list of the lemposis, the lemma POS pairs, and then we give these headwords to the people and make them choose which ones are good instances of the words and which ones are not very good or maybe non-standard and so on. Right. So this happens in 2 phases. The phase 1, which has the team of annotators. The annotators, the native speakers, go through the whole list of the 100,000 headwords. Of course, not everyone goes through the whole list, but they get batches of the headwords, and they say, well, this headword is non-standard. This headword is non-standard. This headword is correct, but it's a proper name, so not a normal word in Czech. This is a proper Czech word. You can have something that is completely wrong, or you don't even know what that means. You can have a word in a different language, so they say it is not Czech. And so we call these flags. They assign flags to every headword. And each headword gets at least 2 annotations. So each headword is seen by at least 2 people, preferably 3, sometimes more, if we want to make some deeper analysis about the words. And the second phase, in the second phase, we have another group of annotators, which are called inspectors, and they do the revision. So they take the word, they see which flags have been assigned, and they also see the context of the word, and they make the final decision if the word is correct, incorrect, or how it should be. They can also correct the word to a correct form. This produces more words, of course. All right, and so here we have the data of the complete word list. We have used 100,000 most frequent headwords based on the document frequency. And the data looks kind of like this. This is a graph of the relationship between the frequency of a word and something I call troublelessness. I don't want to call it correctness because, of course, this is manual annotation, but by non-academic linguists. It's an annotation by normal native speakers. And we can see that the most frequent, here are the most frequent words, and this is less frequent, less frequent, less frequent, and here are the words with the rank 100,000, right? The least frequent headwords from the 100,000 most frequent headwords. We can see that the most frequent headwords are the most likely to be okay, to be troubleless, right? And the less the words are frequent, the more noise the corpus contains, right? So at the end of this word list, there is about 50% chance that the word is going to be correct or incorrect, which I think is, well, there are two interesting things about this. One is that it's a kind of a straight line, right? I would assume that it's going to be some kind of curve or something, but it's kind of linear, the relationship. I think here something is happening. Well, as you can see, there is not one line, but there are 4 lines because I've based it on different frequency types. And here there's something happening at the rank 100,000, but unfortunately we don't have more data. This is why I always say that the research is ongoing, because I would really like to know what is behind this threshold of 100,000 headwords. Also, here it starts to vary, right? The data start to vary, but you can see that all the frequency types have kind of the same data. They are not very different from each other. So, which I'm going to discuss more now. But first, the basic statistics of the project. We have examined, as I told you many times, we have examined 100,000 corpus lemposes, which are based on the document frequency. And this produced about 80,000 dictionary entries, right? So from 100,000, 80,000. Yeah. If I would like to make a dictionary of 100,000 entries, I would estimate that I would need 150,000 corpus lemposes. So more. The more I need, the more I want entries in my dictionary, the more noisy it's gonna get, and the less headwords are gonna be correct, right? So this means that as I told you, the first 100,000 most frequent headwords are much easier to annotate than the second one. Now let's talk about the frequencies and the differences between them. As I told you, here are not many differences, or you cannot see them on the graph. They're really like very, very small differences. And also, if we compare the word lists, compared to the document frequency word list, there are like 5,000 words missing there from the 100,000 absolute frequency word list, right? And a smaller number goes to ARF and ALDF. As you see, these 3 handle the word burstiness, whereas this one does not. But still, the difference is kind of small, because you see, we examined the 100,000 headword word list, and 5,000 is still under 5%. So here, the differences between the word list are still kind of small. So it would seem that it does not matter much if which frequency you choose for the 100,000 word list for making your vocabulary. So no quantitative differences there, or not very many quantitative differences. But we can see that the absolute frequency is more different than the others. If I looked Oh yeah, sorry. This is the statistics for the first 80,000 headwords from each frequency type. We can see that about 67% of the words are correct, and there are no differences here, or like very small ones. And for the next 20,000, it gets a bit lower, but it's still about 57%, and there are still no differences. This is like the difference like of 200 words, which is a small difference in 100,000 headword word list. But what about the qualitative differences? Well, I went through a small number of the differences. There's, it's not very easy to go through 5,000 words and 5,000 differences. But what I found is that if we only take the words that are present in the absolute frequency word list and are considered correct, most of the times we get some URL links or some company names, right? And these are kind of the part of the Czech language, but they are not proper Czech headwords like normal words we want to put into a dictionary, right? So, and this is because of the word burstiness, right? These words are kind of bursty. They appear in one article many times, but not like throughout the whole language. So I would say absolute frequency is not very suitable for making a vocabulary of a dictionary. ARF is a bit better, but there are still a lot of URLs, a lot of company names, and ALDF has I think the most normal Czech words. I wanted to present some examples, but keep in mind these are the words with a rank 100,000, right? So they are very specific and they are kind of intranslatable. They are very difficult to translate for something. Yeah, I could say, like, for example, there's this word that means like to bow somebody out, right? So you just you bow, and this means you want the other person to go away. There's like something like that. So to bow someone out. I don't know if that is translatable to English. So I would say that the ALDF qualitatively could be the best frequency type, but keep in mind that this research is incomplete and I still need to check the ends of the frequency word list. So I still don't know if maybe the document frequency could be better than ALDF. So to wrap things up, there are not many differences in the first 100,000 headwords in the qualitative research. In the quantitative, there are some, but like rather small ones. And I really would love to research the next 100,000 headwords. I don't know if I have the time and the money to do that, but at least like 20,000 or 50,000 could be good. And that's it. I'm sorry, my last slide is not there, but thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. And now all your questions or comments are welcome.
Well, we use Sketch Engine a lot in the institute, right?
Okay.
My question is that we use frequency list, word list generation for our dictionaries as well, but we use mostly raw frequency, the first one. If you say that this LDF is the best, do Sketch Engine have this functionality already so that I can generate my frequency list on the basis of this particular?
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, yeah. The question is if you can generate the ALDF using Sketch Engine, right? The ALDF word list. I think you can. I'm not sure about the ARF in the like app, but well, I do a lot of this stuff using Python and using API, so there is always the option to download these. But I'm not sure about the ALDF. I think ALDF yes, ARF not so much. I think it's not used anymore. The average reduced frequency, it's not very popular now in these times. But ALDF.
Maybe just
no, ARF is not used. ALDF, I think, is still used somehow. I could check, but I don't know. Yeah. We can discuss this afterwards, and I'll show you.
And then the second question is that what corpus you are using for generating those huge frequency lists? I mean, 100,000, it's quite big.
Yes, I forgot to mention. We are using web corpora, so multi-billion headwords, multi-billion token corpora. For the Czech Dictionary Express is the CS1010, so Czech Web Corpus 2000 something. There, it's called Czech Web Corpus 2012 plus 2017 plus 2019 because it's a mashup of these corpora, but it's a long name.
I can? Yeah. Questions?
Yes.
Then, for example, you use annotators, right? And you ask them to annotate the data. Why don't you first try to compare those word frequency lists, for example, with existing word lists in existing dictionaries, for example? Then it would actually take away quite a huge amount of words, and then annotators would only deal with those words that are not registered in academic dictionary subject.
Oh yeah, well, there are not many Czech dictionaries. Last official one is from 1993, so 30 plus years. But the goal of the Czech Dictionary Express is not solely focused on making a Czech dictionary, but on testing the methodology. The Dictionary Express methodology is created for the languages that don't have dictionaries yet, or they have very not many dictionaries, like small languages, which can create their dictionaries more rapidly and just not using lexicographers, because some languages don't even have like lexicographers that are focused on this. So we really want to test these tools so that then we can go to any language so that anyone from any country and any language can tell us, hello, hey, please do a dictionary for us in a quick time. So we are testing these tools for this purpose. And second, we really don't want to copy existing dictionaries into our data. We really want to create the dictionaries from scratch so that we can have a modern dictionary of the modern language that is not biased by the previous dictionaries of the past.
The idea was that you just analyze this frequency list using this previously manually annotated data already actually there in the dictionary. So it no sense to ask annotators to evaluate words that are very frequent or common, like dog or cat. So it doesn't make sense. So that for those words, they could be eliminated.
That is true, but also my experience is that whenever you are examining or like annotating kind of like this area, it is super fast. You can have the first like the first 15,000 headwords were done in a week because you just click okay, everything is okay, right? Or in a month you can get like 50,000 headwords maybe, and then this starts to get difficult. And this, of course, is not like a common Czech, the dictionary vocabulary. I don't know. Have I answered your question, or sorry?
Yeah, I see the point. If it is for less resourced languages, then of course it makes sense to develop this algorithm right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So they don't have any data.
Yes.
So that we need to.
And also like for other languages, it's gonna look a bit different, right? Because for the Czech lemmatizer, the Czech POS tagger, they are very good. But for other languages, they're not gonna be that good. And also some languages are much more complex than Czech, even though Czech is difficult for a lot of people.
Okay, very short.
Maybe somebody else will ask. Because I have one very tricky question about multiwords. So you just only go for mono, only one word themes, or you don't look for multiwords?
That is right. That is correct. This is like a bug in the system. We don't check the multiwords. There is gonna be another task in the Dictionary Express for this.
I think that the sketch engine you also have now syntactical annotated corpora, right? So if we use the syntactical annotated corpora, we could try already to generate frequency lists also for multiwords.
Yeah. That is true.
So this might be like the very interesting next step for this Dictionary Express.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Very, very good notice. Yeah.
No,
thank you once more.
Thank you.
And now the next two presentation will be online. So since these will make the connection, then the first presentation will be about issue and interpersonal meaning in women's instructive texts, but in very early years, to 2017. And okay, these are the 18th till 19th centuries.
Right. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And can you see me? Me and the presentation?
Yes. We don't see your presentation.
Not yet. Okay.
Now we see. Now we see. Nice.
But mine, the one I'm projecting from here.
We see. Yes. We see you and your presentation slides as well. Yeah.
Okay, my presentation. But so I managed from here the presentation. Yeah. That's what I understand. Okay. So thanks a lot. I'm really sorry not being able to attend the conference in person. I was really looking forward to it, but for institutional commitment, it couldn't be possible. So as the introducer has kindly told you, my presentation is on if you and interpersonal meaning in women's instructive text, right from the late modern English period, and instructive text such as recipes and manuals have historically served not only to convey knowledge, but also to shape relationship between writers and reader. One key strategy for managing the relationship is mitigation, softening, instructions, or suggestions. Our paper focuses on the construction of this structural view as a mitigator in this instructive text written by women only between 1700 and 1899. Using what we have it labeled as the Cowite 18 and Cowite 19, this is a corpus of women instructed text in English. We examine how these constructions functions as a politeness marker. In the 10th century, forms like if you please or if you think were used and help engage the reader while reducing imposition. By contrast, the 19th century, marked by industrialization and changing domestic roles, seems to reflect a shift to a more direct and functional language. The aim of our study was to explore how this construction evolved across the 2 centuries using both quantitative and qualitative methods. Specifically, we asked how frequently is this structure used in each century, what forms are most common, and how they are distributed. What would these patterns tell us about changing discursive strategies, and how do these shifts reflect the social and cultural context of each period? Mitigation refers, as you know, to the linguistic strategies used to soften potentially faith-threatening acts, such as order or criticism. In instructive text, this is especially relevant since writers often need to guide the reader without sounding too authoritative. According to Brown and Levinson, politeness helps preserve the hearer's face, and in this context, constructions like "give you" are a way of offering suggestions or alternatives rather than issuing direct commands. In women's instructive texts from the 18th and 19th centuries, mitigation served a dual purpose. It made instruction more palatable and strengthened the relational tone between writer and reader. This was particularly important in texts addressed to women operating in domestic spheres, as highlighted by Davidos and Hall in 2002. Constructions such as "if you please" or "if you think" reflect not just politeness norms of design, but also strategies of deference and inclusion. Importantly, these forms of politeness are historical and culturally specific. In the 18th century, a more relational and deferential tone dominated, consistent with what Fairclough observation on discourse and social norms are. But in the 19th century, we begin to see a shift that could be because of the influence of industrialization, rising literacy, and the emergence of a working class readership that led to a more direct and functional use of language. Efficiency started to take precedence over elaborated politeness, especially in popular instructive writing. From a systemic functional perspective, mitigating construction like "if you" do more than soften tone. They also help organize the discourse, structure interaction, and engage the reader in decision-making. They reflect a teaching intention and a careful negotiation of power, where the writer maintains authority while respecting the autonomy of the reader. To understand the value of "if you" in instructive text, we approach this construction through the lens of, as I said, of semi-functional linguistics, particularly drawing on Halliday and Matheson. In this framework, if clauses contribute to both the textual, ideational, and interpersonal organization of discourse. Conditional establish logical and hypothetical relations. They express cause, contingency, or possible outcomes. For instance, a sentence like "if you add sugar, the mixture will thicken" lays out clear causal sequence of actions, representative, therefore, of the ideational meta function, shaping how experience is represented in language. On the other hand, conditionals also play an interpersonal role. In instructive text, they are not just about conveying steps. They mitigate directive, softening instruction and framing them as suggestion or possibility. This helps reduce the imposition on the reader and creates a more collaborative tone. While the interpersonal function is key here to understanding how "if you" mitigates directive, we also see that this construction contributes very clearly to textual coherence, organizing the flow of information and guiding the reader through conditional or optional steps. Crucially, these "if" constructions often involve two types of processes: material processes, like "if you stir the mixture," which involve physical action, and mental processes like "if you think it needs more salt," which appeal to the reader's judgment or perception. Sometimes these sentences also integrate modal verbs to further enhance their flexibility. As the example you have there, "if you like, you may omit the salt." Here, the structure
hangus. Aga kellel hangus?
Present reader's autonomy. Pronunciation. A specialized resource developed at my home university, the University of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria. And it was designed to examine how women wrote instructive texts in English between the 18th and the 19th centuries. It includes genres such as recipe books, household manuals, and practical guides. Text that reflects everyday female authorship and knowledge sharing. So, yeah, as you can see, this corpus is subdivided into two subcorpora, each of one representing each century. Each subcorpora include only a first edition written by native English-speaking women, either British or American. This ensures both linguistic consistency and temporal accuracy. These texts offer insight into how women use language to balance politeness and authority, often in male-dominated cultural and discursive spaces. The methodology combines quantitative and qualitative approaches. First, we conducted systematic concordance searches for the strings of U using the Casual Corpus tool. This allowed us to identify all relevant instances across both centuries. We then analyzed these occurrences in two ways. We calculated both raw and normalized frequencies per every 1,000 tokens to control for differences in corpus size. We also applied a chi-square text to determine whether differences between the two periods were statistically significant. Qualitatively, we examined each case in context, focusing on three main aspects. The role as a mitigating strategy, its contribution to the overall tone and structure of the text, and how it reflected or responded to the social and cultural expectations of the sign. This approach provides a more nuanced view of how if you function as a linguistic map, especially as an interpersonal device in instructive writing. Finally, while the corpus of this rich amount of data, obviously there are some limitations. First, because it focuses exclusively on female authors for the time being. It doesn't allow for direct comparison with male authored text. Second, the time frame is limited to the 10th and 19th century, which excludes earlier or later developments. Nonetheless, there remains a powerful resource for exploring how women constructed meaning and managed relationship through language and historical instructional genres. And we are also planning to build upon this corpus by adding other centuries, both at least the two previous centuries and the coming century, to include the 20th century as well. Let me now turn to the main findings of the study, which I intend to present in 4 parts: overall frequencies, distribution patterns, statistical variation, and functional analysis. The quantitative results show a clear shift in how if you constructions were used across the 2 centuries. In the 18th century, phrases like if you please, if you think, and if you like are most frequently. For example, if you please, as you can see there, is the most common mitigator in the 18th century corpus. In the 19th century corpus, more functionally oriented forms like if you want and if you prefer seems to start to appear. While if you please is still used, it presents decreases. In contrast, if you want becomes more common, and if you prefer appears for the first time, as it wasn't found in the text for the 18th century. This shift seems to suggest, although it's still to be determined, a gradual move from differential politeness to more need-based or preference-driven expression, possibly linked to changes in readership and communicative norms. The data clearly reflect this trend. The 18th century corpus favors explicit politeness with formulas like if you please dominating, whereas the 19th century introduces new patterns, perhaps signaling changing social expectation and a more pragmatic audience. A statistical variation in this case is to determine whether the observed changes were statistically significant. We apply the chi-square, as I said before, to the distribution of patterns across the 2 corpora. The text return a chi-square value, the one you have there, the 32.95 with a p-value of 2.2, which is not, as you know, statistically significant, and the standard level of 5%. This means that while some shifts in individual forms are noticeable, overall the variation is not strong enough to reject a hypothesis of stability. In other words, although the tone and lexical preferences seems to evolve, the use of if you as a discursive strategy remains relatively stable across both centuries. The qualitative analysis helps clarify how these patterns functioned in context. And so in the 18th century, if you please, often functions as a marker of explicit politeness and deference, as in the case, you may add sugar, if you please, to sweeten the dish. And this reflects a clear attempt to engage the reader respectfully. In the 18th century, forms like if you want or if you find become more prominent, indicating a shift to a practicality and user-centered advice. As in the case you have there, if you find the sauce too thick, add water. So this form are used to highlight the agency and the personal choice and align with changes in literacy and public readership. Finally, the adaptation to audience is or seems to us very evident. 18th century texts often address a relational, yes, I'm about to finish, and function, mirroring changes in polite norms, gender discourse, and social structure. In the case of the moving now to politeness and deference, in the 18th century texts, we have a strong preference for these explicit polite strategies, especially through construction, if you please. And this expression serves as clear mitigators that soften the direct tone instruction. There is frequent use of reflects the interpersonal orientation of the period discourse, particularly in texts aimed at women in domestic spheres. If you consider, for instance, these examples, you may do barberries or black rices the same way, if you please. If you please to do them with the stalks, the repetition of if you please doesn't just signal politeness. It maintains the author's authority while allowing room for the reader's autonomy. The use of if you may alongside if you please creates a discourse space where suggestion replaces imposition, aligning them with Brown and Levinson's model of positive politeness. A similar effect appears in Carnage with Lemon. You may add it if you think proper so to do. Here, if you think proper, invites the reader to make the final call, combining respect to deference with instructional clarity. These examples reveal a model of authorship that guides without imposing, an approach that reflects cultural emphasis on decorum, courtesy, and relational harmony in women's writing of the sign. By contrast, 19th century text shows shift toward functional, pragmatic construction, such as if you find, if you want, and if you like. This form reflects social cultural changes, increasing literacy, urbanization, and a more diverse reading public, also touching the professional sphere. For example, in it is easy to add if you find them too sour for your taste. The construction, if you find, encourages the reader to evaluate and act based on personal judgment. And this must mark clearly this shift in tone from polite deference to reader empowerment. Comparing both centuries, we can observe a continuity in the use of a few as a mitigating strategy. Across both periods, this construction helped authors maintain respectful, reader-oriented discourse, avoiding direct commands and instead offering suggestions, options, and conditions. But the nature of mitigation evolves. The 18th century is characterized by formality and explicit deference, as seen in those forms I have already mentioned, like if you please and if you think proper. The 19th century, in contrast, for more pragmatic expression, like if you want, and thus gaining ground in the discourse field. This suggests a shift from interpersonal alignment to a functional stability. To conclude, the comparative analysis of a few constructions in 18th and 19th century women's strategy texts reveal important shifts in both linguistic practice and social cultural context. From a systemic functional perspective, these constructions play a central role in the interpersonal metafunction of language, helping authors manage their relationship with readers through politeness and mitigation. In the 18th century, they reflect this differential tone, and they allowed for using these strategies as negative politeness, encouraging and respecting sometimes autonomy. By the 19th century, we begin to see this clear shift and with a more democratization of knowledge. And here mitigation still plays a role, but it does so in service of clarity, functionality, and inclusivity, adapting to the needs of a more diverse readership. These changes also reflect the transformations ongoing in the textual organization of extractive discourse. What was once structures around politeness and deference becomes more streamlined and efficient, in line with the evolving cultural values such as autonomy and practicality. Ultimately, the EVU construction functions not only as a pragmatic softener, but as a linguistic marker of historical change, capturing how interpersonal relations shift with changing norms and audiences and communicative goals. Thanks so much.
Thank you for very interesting and for me it was a very new view to the corpus linguistics. What kind of things
Thanks a lot.
you can discover.
Yes, this is part of an ongoing project we have here in Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, because we wanted to see how we really wrote in those centuries as a start to a more comprehensive analysis involving an interpersonal grammar of language as used by women. So we need to compare all the results with men, but there are certainly some cases like the use, for instance, of cognitive structures being used more prominently in women rather than in men, that we have also unveiled with the use of this. I mean, the small corpus we have, but it's just a starting point.
Thank you. So here are some questions also.
Thank you for presentation. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you with an echo, but I will try to do my best.
I'll stand up. So my question was, to which extent these constructions occur in more creative stretches of text, of language use, or more formulaic, to which extent they have become formulaic or they are part of larger formula, because I can imagine there's quite a lot of formulaic language use in these kinds of manuals, and where politeness fits in there, because I could imagine, that the more texts are formulaic, the function of or the link to politeness changes. So I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Yes, that's something we have to talk about, because obviously there is a lot of institutionalized language in recipes, especially, and formulas like is something that we expect. But the reason why we focus on this is because we have previous knowledge on recipe writing from the medieval period and even later. All of them written by men, and this type of formula were not as recurrent as, or it didn't impress us as much as arousing any type of interest in us. But obviously, that is something we have to cater and see whether this belongs to a more type of institutionalized or formulaic type of language, and we have to do it by comparing with new corpora written especially by men, which is the part we are not included here. But you are right that it could be.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned that some of the authors were British or American. Were there any differences between these two groups? It might be really early on as the countries separated in this time, but were there already some differences between British women and American women?
Okay. I mean, concerning the view, we have still not I mean, focus on that, right? Yet. I mean, in the particular case of this structure, we are, I mean, the project is really new, but there are differences, and that's for sure, at the lexical level. But as your colleague said, this has a lot of institutionalized racism, right? So we do not know to which extent there are differences concerning the grammatical level, which also has to do with interpersonal level, and it's something we have to focus on, right? The brain is really new. That's why, but it's something that we are now someone is working on a feature of cognitive structures from this cultural perspective, from the American and the British one, right? But I'm so sorry, I cannot give you exact examples now.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you once more.
Thank you.
Now our time is over.
Thank you. I'm so sorry not to be there, not having been able to be there. I was eager to go because I love studying. Okay. See you.
See you.
Thank you. And thanks for the organization.
Thank you. Okay. Because the next presentation, which is also online, talks about morphological ambiguity of Lithuanian uninflected parts of speech. And Migle Žemriete will present this. Hello?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes. Yes, we see and hear you.
Okay, great. And my slides too?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So good day. My name is Migle Žemriete and I'm from Lithuania, the Institute of the Lithuanian Language. And I am currently researching morphological ambiguity, especially in uninflected parts of speech, and would like to share with you the key aspect of this topic. Oh, okay. So morphological ambiguity is a phenomenon where the same word form can have multiple meanings depending on context. Both inflected and uninflected word forms may coincide. For example, the English word light can be an adjective meaning not heavy, a noun meaning illumination, or a verb meaning to ignite. And since Lithuanian is morphologically complex with 7 cases and variety of verb forms, different forms of the same word may coincide too. Well, for example, mama in Lithuanian can be the nominative singular, the instrumental, and the vocative form. So this phenomenon has been studied both in Lithuania and abroad for over 2 decades since the emerge of automatic language analysis tools called morphological taggers. Well, morphological taggers are programs that, once given a word or a text, display the grammatical tags for each word, such as part of speech, gender, number, case, and etc. And Lithuanian can be analyzed currently using 3 described and accessible morphological taggers: Lemuoklis, Semantika LT, and Morphuoklis. So the first one, Lemuoklis, in the picture you can see a picture of Lemuoklis annotation, and it appeared in 2000s. In the same year, using this tool, the Center of Computational Linguistics at Vytautas Magnus University, they began to compiling the automatically morphologically annotated Lithuanian corpus, Matas. Here you can see a picture of Semantika LT tagger. It was developed in 2012. It was a second tagger, and it operates more accurately than Lemuoklis. The Semantika tagger annotated the Lithuanian learner's corpus with about 93% accuracy. And at the end of 2003, another freely accessible tagger called Morphuoklis became available, and it should be as accurate as Semantika LT tagger, but it was not researched. However, these taggers, even the most recent ones, did not annotate correctly. They often fail to recognize foreign words, slang, abbreviation, and what is the most important, that morphologically ambiguous words are particularly problematic. because taggers struggle to choose the correct grammatical tag when a word has several possible ones. So, as mentioned, morphological ambiguity is not exclusive to Lithuanian linguistics. In Czech, morphologically ambiguous forms make up to 46%, in English about 38%, in Hungarian about 21%. According to Estonian scholars, almost half of the Estonian lexicon is morphologically ambiguous, and a similar situation was found in Latvian. And like in Lithuania, scholars in other countries are developing morphological taggers to analyze language, and the accuracy is similar to that of Lithuanian. For example, Latvian taggers identify lemmas with 97% accuracy and grammatical tags with 93%. Polish taggers work with about 94% accuracy, Czech ones about 97%, and Estonians reach about 97% accuracy. And you might know, but the first Estonian morphological tagger is called Estmorph. It was released in 1996, and it displays detailed morphological information like part of speech, gender, number, case, etc. And later, this Estmorph tagger was updated and renamed Vabomorph. And this program still has imperfections. It correctly tags about 90% of words, and most errors occur due to morphological ambiguity. And other taggers have been developed based on Vabomorph. And Estonian researchers are also developing neural network-based morphological taggers, which we do not have in Lithuania. For example, in 2018, Estonian linguists Tkachenko and Serts, if I am saying their name right, they published a scientific article describing a neural network model designed for better analysis for Estonian. And their model achieved about 98% accuracy, and this study laid the foundation for further Estonian research involving neural networks. So now let us turn to Lithuanian. I would like to tell you about my study, which analyzes morphologically ambiguous uninflected parts of speech. And in Lithuanian, ambiguity may occur between two inflected words. Well, for example, the word Buddha, it means character, and doghouse. Both are nouns, but one of them is masculine, another one is feminine. Also between inflected and uninflected words, for example, deli, it means a slug, so a noun, and a preposition, for. And also between two or more uninflected words. For example, kaip can be an adverb, a particle, or a conjunction. So those overlaps in uninflected parts of speech are fairly common, but distinguishing them is very difficult for humans and for programs too. And even the criteria provided in dictionaries are not always clear. Thus, eliminating morphological ambiguity in uninflected words, uninflected parts of speech is quite challenging. And about 25% of all morphologically ambiguous words are uninflected, and these overlaps can be divided into 9 categories. So, for example, conjunctions and particles, well, for example, words like ar, būt, and ir, ne, they can all be conjunction and particle, depending on context. Or, for example, adverbs and conjunctions and particles, for example, tik, kaip, čia, they can all be an adverb and conjunction and particle. And so on. I will not be reading them all. I am most interested in that bolded category, adverbs and prepositions. Words like aplinkui, anapus, priešais, arti, they can all be an adverb and preposition. So, as I just said in the study, I decided to focus more closely on adverbs that can coincide with prepositions. For example, the word arti can be both an adverb and a preposition. In sentence, namas stovi arti, in English it is the house is near, arti is an adverb. And in other sentence, namas stovi arti miško, the house is near the forest, the same arti is preposition. But in such cases, Lithuanian tigers find it difficult to determine the correct part of speech, and although prepositions usually precede nouns, this rule does not always apply. And dictionary analysis revealed very problematic cases where even in theory, the distinction between adverb and preposition is unclear. And this contributes to annotation inaccuracies. And adverbs also are among the most complex parts of speech in Lithuania, and analyzing them has long challenged linguists. And additionally, prepositions and adverbs can form clusters such as iš anapus pasaulio, that means from beyond the world, where both from and beyond are prepositions. And in Lithuanian, identifying the part of speech in such cases is complicated. And while it seems that the development of Lithuanian linguistics, the distinction and relationship between adverbs and prepositions are becoming clearer, many questions still remain, especially now that computer programs are used for morphological annotation. And since ambiguity between adverbs and prepositions is one of the reasons for annotation inaccuracies, the issues of overlapping prepositions and adverbs are relevant to both theoretical and practical linguistics. So for this study, all morphologically ambiguous words were automatically extracted from morphologically annotated corpus called matas. And from that list, adverbs coinciding with prepositions were selected by hand, by me, and these are the object of the study. And a total of 46 words were found. And to save time today, I will be speaking about only 3 of those 46 analyzed words. So the goal of this study is to examine the distinction between adverbs and prepositions, to examine how the distinction between adverbs and prepositions is reflected in 3 main Lithuanian dictionaries. So Dictionary of Contemporary Lithuanian, Dictionary of the Lithuanian Language, and Dictionary of Standard Lithuanian. As well as in the main grammars, so Grammar of Contemporary Lithuanian, Lithuanian Grammar, and Practical Grammar of Standard Lithuanian. And also Šukys book, Lithuanian Cases and Prepositions. And it also examines how frequently and in what ways these word types are used in the corpora, matas, and corpus of contemporary Lithuanian language. So those 2 corpora. And provide recommendations on how to describe adverbs and prepositions more clearly in lexicographic resources. So the first word that I would like to discuss is netoli, or not far in English. And according to Dictionary of Contemporary Lithuanian and Dictionary of the Lithuanian Language, netoli can be both an adverb and a preposition, but Dictionary of Standard Lithuanian does not describe this word at all. And I would like to focus on one example from Dictionary of the Lithuanian Language. Maudėmės netoli nuo kranto, that means we swam not far from the shore. And this example is presented under the adverb entry, suggesting that netoli nuo, or not far from, that it is interpreted as an adverb plus preposition construction, although netoli can be a preposition too. So Lithuanian grammar provides a similar interpretation. It claims that this is not a compound preposition, as netoli could be moved within the sentence or separated. So natole is, well, they say that natole is an adverb. Where's the problem? The problem is here that other linguists disagree. They think that natole in such cases is not an adverb, it is a preposition. For example, our well-known linguist, Shukis, he argues that natole with noa tend to form compound prepositions. So natole should be treated as such. And practical grammar of Standard Lithuanian supports this opinion, stating that in natole noa, natole is a preposition. However, practical grammar of Standard Lithuanian overall describes those compound prepositions quite liberally. They say that the distinction depends on intonation, which is quite interesting. They say that if the phrase is said with one intonation, both words are prepositions, and if said with two separate intonations, one is an adverb and the other one is preposition. Well, clearly intonation is not an objective criteria and is not usable in automated annotation. So therefore, the question still arises, should natole noa be treated as one lexical unit or two? And according to the Dictionary of Lithuanian Language, Lithuanian Grammar, and Grammar of Contemporary Lithuanian, it is better to treat them as separate. Natole as an adverb and noa as preposition. So the next two words are arčiau and arčiausiai. That means closer and closest. Well, comparative and superlative forms can become prepositions in Lithuanian language too. However, such ambiguity cannot be reflected in dictionaries, as only the base adverb forms are included, and even if arčiau were included, it would be listed as a preposition only. Arčiau is not included in the Dictionary of Contemporary Lithuanian or Dictionary of Standard Lithuanian, but it appears in the Dictionary of Lithuanian Language as a preposition. And in my view, dictionaries and future grammars should include prepositions derived from both comparative and superlative adverbs, especially if they are used frequently and are grammatically correct. And prepositions are not gradable or inflectable, of course, so including only the form arti, which means close, is insufficient, because you cannot derive arčiau from arti as a preposition. And usage also supports this in Matas corpus. Arčiau is used as preposition 62% of the time, and in the corpus of the contemporary Lithuanian language, 47%. Similarly, there is no dictionary entry for arčiausiai, the closest, although about half of its occurrences in the corpus of contemporary Lithuanian language are as prepositions. So prepositions derived from comparative and superlative adverbs like arčiau and arčiausiai should be included in dictionaries, especially when they are frequently used. And the last word that I would like to talk about is parallel or parallelly. In Lithuanian, it is paraleliai. And this word is very interesting for me because it is not included in either the Dictionary of Contemporary Lithuanian or the Dictionary of Standard Lithuanian, but it appears in the Dictionary of Lithuanian Language, but it is only considered as an adverb here, so not as preposition. And in morphological taggers, like the newest tagger Morphoclis, the form parallel is also considered just an adverb, not preposition. So this means that in none of the dictionaries or in morphological taggers is parallel considered as preposition. Whether this meaning should be included, at least in morphological taggers, can be determined from a brief analysis of corpora. The prepositional use of parallel in the Matas corpus accounts for 16%, and in the corpus of contemporary Lithuanian language, it accounts for 11%. What is the most interesting about this word? That preposition parallel is used with the dative case in the corpus. And the use of this dative case with prepositions is very, very unusual in Lithuanian. And according to the grammar of contemporary Lithuanian, only the accusative, instrumental, and genitive cases are used with prepositions. So the use of the dative is archaic, remaining in dialects or fixed or in fixed lexicalized constructions. However, the preposition parallel is used only with the dative, and examples show that this is not dialectical or archaic language. Well, it can likely be stated that an atypical prepositional use with the dative is developing. And there is no information on the word parallel in grammar books. This situation may have occurred because the prepositional use of this word is a relatively recent phenomenon. So therefore, to conclude this slide, although the word parallel is included in dictionaries only as an adverb, or sometimes not included at all, its use shows that it is also used as preposition. And however, there are questions regarding its correctness, as it is unusual for it to form construction with the dative case, and consequently, its inclusion in dictionaries could be very complicated. And yeah, here I am talking about conclusions and recommendations, so I will not be reading it all. I just want to say a few sentences that the results of this study show that to improve Lithuanian lexicographical sources, a more thorough and systematic analysis of adverbs and prepositions is needed, along with clearer presentation of these parts of speech in dictionaries. And such an analysis will help clarify the rules of uninflected words in the Lithuanian language. As Lithuanian annotators, taggers, they rely on quantitative data and linguistic rules. So, thank you for your attention. That's it.
Thank you. And now we have some minutes for questions. Who knows much better Lithuanian language than maybe there are some. Actually, this problem, as you already said, is well known in other languages as well. The homonymity of the inflectional forms in different parts of speeches. Do you see me?
Yes.
And of course the adverb and preposition is in Estonian. I can say that maybe 50% of the adverbs and prepositions are possible. The most frequent adverbs and prepositions are possible to use as in both parts of speeches. But in your results, what is the advantage of your research? Does it help the taggers to make more correct the taggers, for example?
Yes, I believe so, because as I said, Lithuanian taggers, they rely not only on quantitative data, but also on linguistic rules. And the results show that also in theory, it is not clear whether the same word is preposition or adverb. So we cannot expect that taggers will tag them correctly if scholars don't know. So I believe that if we have a clearer theoretical background of those two parts of speech, it could improve taggers.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned a lot of dictionaries and grammar books that you used in your research. I'm so interested in, is there one that is like the most influential? Like when these people who work on the Daggers look at linguistic rules, like which is the one they turn to most? Or like one canonical grammar book or dictionary?
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is that all those books are quite old. It was released in 1980s or 1990s, so I think that the problem lies here, and we still mostly use those grammars because they're most broad, I think. So maybe Lithuanian language grammar, but scholars try to write new grammars, like, for example, as I mentioned, practical grammar of Lithuanian language. But I don't know, as I said, it has some strange rules talking about prepositions and adverbs, like they say that intonation can help determine whether the word is an adverb or preposition. So I do not know if it is okay to rely on those new books. So we still most use those old grammar books. Yeah.
Thank you. That's curious.
I was wondering if you would support this idea that the taggers should do like multiple tags for one lemma in these ambiguous cases where you can see that it can be an adverb or a preposition, and it's ambiguous, so it can just tag both. But I'm guessing it would require a different system adjustment.
Did you hear the question?
I heard it. I'm not sure if I understand, but taggers they work so that first of all they choose all the possible forms of the same word, and then they choose the most likely one. So our goal is to make that they would choose the most likely word the most of the time. So then their accuracy is the best.
Yeah, sometimes you can help with special rules, the taggers, but mostly they took into account only the frequency in a special part of speech or in a special morphological analysis. Yeah.
Yeah, for a comment on Estonian, my bachelor's thesis was about seeing the quality of the Estonian morphological tagger, basically. And there, for the Estonian tagger, we have forms that are morphologically unambiguous, that the tagger does not define which one it is. So the most common one is when the same suffix is for the verb and an adjective. And there, the people that basically wrote the tagger said, we don't know as linguists, so we're not going to say which one it is. We'll leave both forms. So do you think this is something that you should also do in Lithuanian? Or like, are there cases where you can't say which one it is, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that theoretically we should always say, like, we as people, as person, we should always choose one correct form. But I'm not sure if I correctly or answer if I understood your answer correctly. But yeah, like for example, when I am analyzing those in uninflected parts of speech, it is very, very hard for humans to say whether is an adverb or whether is a preposition, and not just basic humans, but for grammatical linguists too. They do not always agree on this. Yeah.
That's very normal that even the linguists are not agree with each other in such tasks.
Yeah.
Thank you once more for the presentation, and now we have here some time for coffee break, and also you all in all the others participating in web can take some coffee and have a rest for a while. Thank you.